Joseph was having a nice gift of interpretation. After having a good dream of how God raised him, he still have a gift of interpretation. But the interpretation will not work until somebody will have a dream. The interpretation, the gift of interpretation will not show forth until somebody have a dream. But for somebody to have a dream, he must link to become slave. So the process of God for your manifestation is not the way you think. Do you know Joseph became a slave because he was drawing closer to interpret a dream? A time came, the Bible said he became a slave. And when the time to process for the interpretation, the Bible said the dream can only come out of a prison, and you cannot stay outside the prison to interpret a dream. Woman, do whatever you have to do. I will use you as a tool to take my son to a prison so he can interpret a dream. Listen, some of the place we found ourselves, we are busy complaining is God's will. God's what? Is God's will, and we are busy explaining and complaining why this pain, why this problem, why God said, wait now, you are about to interpret a dream. Do you know what happened? The Bible said when he got to the prison, immediately because of what he carried, they gave him in charge of the prison. Now that gave these people access to honor him and explain their dreams if they have. If he was just a normal man in that prison, nobody will notice. God raised him. So when these people had their dream, they had to go to their boss and said, this is what we had. And the Bible said he gave the interpretation and it happened rightly. But one thing I wonder, the man did not free that moment. The reason is because after one interpretation, another dream that will take him out. The first dream is not to take him out. The first dream is to interpret his calling. The first interpretation is to introduce him. Listen to me. There is a place of introduction. There is a place of perfection. And there is a place of exposure. The first interpretation was to introduce Joseph that there is a certain man. But do you know, he did not move because the other dream is still on his way. So you have to wait inside the prison for the next dream. Not because God abandoned him, but God was preparing another dream. When you found yourself in a place that looks somehow stagnant, ask if it is the will of God. If it is the will of God, then don't complain. Do you know, when the next dream came, he did not come from ordinary men. He came from the Pharaoh himself. And the Bible said there is a certain taboo in the land of Egypt that a man cannot appear before the king with beards all over his body. So you have to scrape and look neat. Even when the gift is speaking, he has to let go some certain things attached to his life before he will appear before the king. Gift alone is not enough. The gift alone is not enough. The Bible said, the king said he can't appear like this. Shave him and make him look good. Even with the beards, he has to let go the beards because it's a taboo. Listen to me. What you think is okay to you might be a taboo in the sight of God. Let it go so you can have access to stand before the Lord.